All guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 brought to us by the official beer of the program, Johnny Cuba, European roots with that Caribbean soul, a refreshing German lager in a can. You can pick up a six-pack of Johnny Cuba, your local Sedano's Presidente, Winn-Dixie, Fresco y Mas, and of course, always drink responsibly. And don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. Joining us here, Dolphins Drive Time podcast, pre- and post-game host, Miami Dolphins Radio Network, Travis Wingfield. Travis, good morning. And it's funny, I go online this morning, and I want to check on the status of a few guys, you know? So one of the first that I click on, Raheem Mostert. You know, he missed practice yesterday. He's been missing Wednesday practice. It seems like it's a maintenance thing, but I go on, I click on it because there's news, and it says he practiced on Thursday. He looks good to go. I'm like, practiced on Thursday? It's 8 a.m. What do you mean he practiced on Thursday? They're in the future over there in Germany. It's a weird adjustment that they're so far ahead of us out there, you know?
6 hours ahead. And to that point, I was watching the clips of practice on Thursday early in the morning, and I was thinking to myself, like, gosh, it's always so gloomy over there. But today, here in South Florida, gloomy as hell outside. So I guess the weather kind of reflecting each other. But yeah, it's a weird dynamic. That 9:30 a.m. kickoff. I used to live on the West Coast, so the 6:30 kickoff for the old international games. I don't know how you do it out there. I mean, I guess I've done it before, but it's not fun.
Do you like the not like you don't want it every week, but I kind of dig it. I'm going to wake up early on Sunday. I'm going to watch the Dolphins game, and then hopefully it sets my mood right for the rest of the action.
I always say nothing is better than, like, the best part about winning is watching the rest of the games and the rest of the content that comes out
No
the
stress.
following week after a win. So you have a chance to have a perfect Sunday, or you have a chance maybe just go have some family time on Sunday if you lose.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about what we're expecting this weekend. I think they're ready for this game, man. I do. It's been frustrating that they've had two opportunities to beat good teams, most recently 2 weeks ago in Philadelphia. I've made a big case of this on my show. I'd much rather lose to the good teams than lose to the bad teams. It seems that there aren't many people who feel that way. You're only a fraud if you lose to good teams. You're not a fraud if you lose to bad teams, which seems ass backwards to me. But this is another opportunity for the Dolphins this weekend, and I think they're catching the Chiefs at a good time. I think they luck out a little bit that the game is in Germany as opposed to in Kansas City, and I think they're ready to win this game.
That's kind of how I feel as well. I mean, I think it's kind of been building towards this ultimate crescendo, which is funny to say at week 9 in the NFL season because Zaslow, if they win the game, all that stuff goes away, right? And to that point, I could not agree with you more. Like, I keep seeing people have our same viewpoint, tell those fans, like, this isn't college football. Well, in college football, when you lose to Bama or Georgia or, formerly Clemson, those were losses that you could have on your resume and still make the college football playoffs. So losing to the best teams, like you said, by the formula is way better than losing to, a Giants team or whoever the heck the Patriots, whoever some of these top teams have lost to over the last couple of weeks. But yeah, in terms of this game, it's a big one. I said it on my podcast. I believe this could be what decides home field advantage in the AFC. I believe the Dolphins are that good. I believe the Chiefs obviously are that good. But yeah, you talk about, getting back to full strength, and we'll see what happens on the offensive line. Teron Armstead looks pretty happy to be out there kind of dancing around at practice on Thursday. So if he comes back, that's huge. I do worry about the potential of having both your backup guards in, although I do believe that Lester Cotton and Rob Jones can play. Rob Hunt would be a big loss if he can't go. But on the other side of the ball, like, I watching that tape against the Patriots, the impact that Jalen Ramsey had really kind of solidified to me in my mind what I thought the Vic Fangio defense might look like going back to, was it February when they hired him, whenever it was. And then you acquire Jalen Ramsey. It's like, okay, this defense might look like this. I think they had a hard time accounting for his loss, but with him back, it looked a lot different. I think the coverage and rush marry up together. And that alone with a KC offense that is kind of one-dimensional right now, pretty much only has Kelsey as a go-to reliable target. I like the Dolphins' chances on that side of the ball to get some stops.
Well, that's also why, talking about this defense, all right, they held, their opponent last week to 17 points, but that's a Patriot offense that is really terrible, okay? And so they gave up 31 to Philadelphia the week before, but I actually think the defense made a bunch of big plays in that game. I feel like you're trending in the right direction after that game. Denver just held Kansas City to 9 points. So it feels like the Dolphins defense, this is a major measuring stick for that defense. You can't have Mahomes come out there this weekend, and I get it, he's Patrick Mahomes, but it'd be a bad look for this Dolphin defense then for the progress that you're thinking that they've made if they come out and they give up 30 points, even in a win, but if they come out and give up 30 points to Kansas City.
Yeah, because then all of a sudden the narrative shifts back to where you're going to see Josh Allen in week 18. You're going to see Lamar Jackson in week 17. And these are the quarterbacks that, the Dolphins, they've tended to beat up on these, like you mentioned, the bad offenses, but these elite level quarterbacks always seem to give them fits. And I guess, keeping it in perspective, those quarterbacks tend to do that to most teams. But if you want to be a serious contender, a team that can go, whether it's home or on the road in January and win a big football game to put yourself in position to compete for a championship, you're going to have some stops against teams like this that have these quarterbacks. And again, I keep going back to Ramsey because my confidence in the Dolphins' ability to win this game would not be anywhere near what it is if you didn't have Ramsey, because I just view him as this piece that can elevate the rest of the defense in the way that Tyreek Hill elevates the rest of the offense, create some of those lanes for Jalen Waddle to score a wide open touchdown to close out the game on Sunday against the Patriots, or the running game to get the, the cushion that the defense gives them when they have to cover Hill down the field and you create lack of hats in the box against the running game. But Ramsey, this dude can erase Travis Kelce. He did it last year. They faced the Rams and Bucks play, or not the Bucks, the Rams and Chiefs played last year, and Kelce had 1 for 39. It was a touchdown, but he also, of the other 2 targets he received against Ramsey, one was a pass breakup, one was a pick. If you get that this week from Kelce, 1 for 39 for a touchdown and a pick on the targets he gets, the Dolphins are going to win this game going away. So I think that the Dolphins getting Ramsey back and the ability to basically maybe shadow Travis Kelce, because his entire game is search for soft spots and screw the route concept. I'm just going to go to where there's open space. If you have a guy shadowing him, he can't do that. And then I'm not sure how this Chiefs offense beats you.
I feel like it happens in sports, not just football, but where your favorite team acquires a player who's really good, and he's really good, but you don't realize actually how good he is until you get to watch him every game. Like, wow, I did not realize that's who he is. And yes, it's only been one game with Jalen Ramsey, but I feel like it was pretty apparent immediately that, wow, I know everyone tells me how great Jalen Ramsey is, but I look at him on the field and he just, maybe the throwback uniforms have a little bit to do with it. They're the best uniform. I mean, it'll forever be a mystery why the Dolphins don't go back to it permanently. I mean, only everyone thinks they should. I don't get it. But Jalen Ramsey looks like the best player on the field. And I feel like it's going to be one of those situations where, wow, I didn't realize how good he was until I got to watch him every week.
I was wondering how far you were going to take the uniform tangent there. I appreciate that you finished off there with the completion at the end there. And it does seem to be the prevailing narrative there that everyone seems to love those throwbacks. But yeah, and just the way he was able to, like in that game, they would run 3-by-1 sets with 3 to the short side of the field where there's less space. And it would be Ramsey all by himself on Devontae Parker, or, they might motion out Zeke Elliott, which, that's a matchup the Dolphins are going to take every time. Or maybe it's, Hunter Henry, whoever it was. They were giving Ramsey, 2/3 of the field to cover by himself. And the Patriots still had no interest in throwing the football to that side. And you kind of wonder, maybe part of that is that he's so good, but also because your other cornerback, Xavier Howard's not up for the game. So we're going to attack that side of the field because they don't have their premier guy out there right now. But if X comes back, and I posted this on Twitter this morning, when X had games with Byron Jones, he averaged 0.4 picks per game. It was like 12 of his picks in like 32 games or something like that. And the other 63 games in his career, he has like 17 picks, which works its way out to like 0.2 picks per game. So his interception production doubles when he has a premier lockdown corner. And we can debate Byron Jones's value over those 2 years that he was here. But the point is, when you have a sticky man cover guy on the opposite side, all of a sudden X playmaking and ball hawking doubles in terms of production. So I think that you can now have the Dolphins' ability to just lock down either side of the field. Javon Holland can kind of roam between there and hunt. It just makes everything so much better because of the space that Ramsey can take away and force more targets towards Javon Holland, towards Xavier Howard, and that better coverage helps the pass rush. it's all better because, like you mentioned, he is the best player in the field when he's out there.
How does Ramsey normally operate when it comes to the best receiver on the field? Like, will he follow him around? Will he switch sides? What do we expect there?
Yeah, he does a little bit of all of that. I mean, I view it, or I compare it to what Nick Saban did with Mika Fitzpatrick at Alabama, where he essentially played the role that wherever they're strongest, we're going to put you in there. So whether it's, Cooper Kupp in the slot, or Travis Kelce, or, even the Bucs with Rob Gronkowski, he matched up on him a lot when they faced up head to head. So we'll see. I wonder how much Vic wants to get him more comfortable in the defense before he does that. Although there's so much carryover here with what he played with the Rams to this Dolphins defense now. So I would expect, I would assume, I should say, to see him travel with Kelce a lot, but I can't guarantee that. We'll see.
I think some Dolphin fans, especially when you see Chase Young went to San Francisco for a 3rd-round pick, like, why didn't the Dolphins make some type of move at the trade deadline? And I really think the Dolphins trade deadline move is getting Jalen Ramsey and getting back Xavier Howard and getting back Javon Holland and getting back Connor Williams and getting back Devon Achane. So just the idea that they had to go out there and make some type of trade because you want to go for it. These are major pieces that they're getting back either at the trade deadline or around the trade deadline.
The biggest pieces, I mean, the number of all pros that you had on your IR prior to Ramsey coming back with he and Teron Armstead. And then, I mean, was there a better running back in the NFL than Devon Achane when he played? Like, he looked like the best back in the league. We saw Jahmyr Gibbs go crazy on Monday night and kind of show some of the rare speed and burst that he had to the corner. Like, Achane was better than that when he was playing. So, yeah, in terms of, getting back a lockdown left tackle who, anybody that wanted to detract from Tua Tagovailoa, and ZASLOW, you and I are not those people, fortunately. Anyone that wanted to take away from what Tua was doing last year would say, well, here's his stats without Teron Armstead, even though it was like 50 snaps against the 49ers. Like, okay, cool stat. But now that Teron hasn't played, Tua has put that to the side. So the point of that argument is that Teron is one of the best left tackles. And you can, again, like Ramsey, you can change the entire way your protection scheme looks because you can slide your help away from Teron, and he's probably going to beat whoever he faces one-on-one 59 out of 60 snaps in a given game. You talk about Achane, the electricity that he provides, and we've seen some of these runs and these lanes open up, whether it's, Mostert usually hits them, but whether it's Savon or Jeff or someone else, like, good players, but they don't have the speed and the explosiveness to turn these 15-yard runs into 75-yard touchdown runs the way that Achane did. And that just changed the way defenses played you. So I think it all goes back to that original point with Ramsey, where he makes the whole defense better. Teron Armstead makes the entire offensive line better. Devon Achane makes this offense more explosive because he creates more space in the same way that Tyreek Hill does. I wouldn't have made any moves either because I believe that the Dolphins are going to be this good team for the next couple of years just based on who they have. But I think it's going to be paramount for them in these next couple of draft classes to find 2, 3, 4 players on rookie contracts who could contribute for the next 4 or 5 years. I think it's going to be vital for Miami to be able to sustain the success to do that. So I like not moving future assets. And like you said, banking on, to me, what's the best roster in the NFL.
So Xavier Howard wanted to play apparently a couple weeks ago against Carolina. They're protecting him from himself. Then he still doesn't play last week as Jalen Ramsey makes his return. I'm not going to say, I'm not saying that they're holding him out, but are they essentially, do you believe that they're being extra cautious? A, because they look at their record, they do have a great record, and B, they know where they're going to be in the second half of the season. I think getting these guys back when they're getting them back, the injury at the early part of the season, I think it's going to be a blessing in disguise for these guys. I really do. So how careful do you think the Dolphins are being with some of these injured players where it's like, especially Xavier Howard, look, we're playing Carolina. Chill. All right, look, Jalen's returning this week. Chill. Let's make sure you're 1,000%. I know you could play. Let's make sure you're 1,000% because it's going to benefit you and it's going to benefit us.
And doesn't that kind of speak to the argument we had at the top of the show with style points or, the fraudulent talk? Like, the Dolphins come out against a Patriots team that just beat Buffalo, by the way. And you and I both agree the Patriots are not a good team this year, but they did beat Buffalo the week prior. And you're down, like we just talked about, all the guys that you're down, and you still controlled that game pretty much for 3 quarters. The first quarter wasn't great, but after that, you never had fear the Dolphins were going to lose that game. Like you mentioned, the Panthers game, never in doubt. Even at 14-0, I wasn't even in doubt in that game. The Giants game, they were down so many key parts, never even close to being in doubt. And your ability to do that while kind of resting these guys and protecting them from themselves, like you mentioned, I think that the player who tried to test it out and kind of inform the Dolphins that this is the right way to approach this and kind of use this load management. And you even look at, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle's snap counts, like they are not what other number 1 and 2 receivers are. They are like 75% every single week. Let's rest these guys, make sure they're not burning them out.
It feels like they're being careful. It feels like
and I don't know if you're familiar with Chris Kaufman, but he had a great thread about the link between McDaniel and Eric Spoelstra and how they kind of have some overlapping, philosophy, and who better to take philosophy from than Eric Spoelstra. But, in that Giants game, they brought Connor Williams back, and McDaniel had alluded to the fact that he felt that it was a little bit of a setback for him. And so, McDaniel's not stupid at all. He knows that last year, the reason this team was not competitive down the stretch was because of the attrition at quarterback, offensive line, and the defensive backfield. Well, like you mentioned, who's healthier right now than the Miami Dolphins? Like every team has a million injuries, and the Dolphins are getting back. And we'll see if it plays out that way over the final 10 weeks of the season. But the way I view it, ZASLOW, is like everyone wanted to win that Philly game. And I think that was for perception's sake, because technically the 5 games against NFC teams every year are your least important games. If you dump 1 or 2 of those and you win the rest of your games, like so be it, you'll be the number 1 seed. And so for Miami, yeah, it would have been nice to win that game and quiet all the talk. But in terms of the importance of standings and getting home games in January, if teams have to come through Hard Rock Stadium in January, I'm sorry, but the Dolphins are favorites to go to the Super Bowl if that's the case. And if you win this game, you are in the catbird seat to do that. So resting up for this game with the bye week coming after, it just seems all perfect. And I'm with you, man. I think it's the best roster in the NFL. And from an injury standpoint, they might be the luckiest right now. It could change any week, but right now they have one of the best looking injury reports in the NFL because of, I think, this patience they've shown.
Yeah, I really think they're ready for this game this weekend.
I'm with you, man.
It's made me a little bit nuts, the commentary around Tua recently, because, especially coming from, assholes up in New England where Tua, he's got all the help around him. That's why he's, having the success he's having. And it's like, he was the number 5 overall pick in the draft. If he didn't get hurt, he was maybe going to go number 1 overall in the draft. For several years, the mantra around the NFL was tank for Tua so you could build your franchise around him. Whether you think that he's being aided by the cast around him or not, he literally was the kind of prospect who is supposed to do exactly what he is doing right now. So he wasn't the last pick. It wasn't Brock Purdy. And that's not I'm not trying to put down Brock Purdy, but make that case about Brock Purdy. He was the last pick in the draft. Tua was selected specifically to carry your franchise. So that kind of commentary around him, it makes me crazy.
You're preaching to the choir, and I talked to my boss who, we kind of go over podcast topics and just general thoughts about the team and how to approach coverage. And he always tells me, Travis, you're too online, you're too on Twitter where you see all this stuff. And it's so funny to me that we get this kind of, I hope, a referendum on how people view quarterback play, because everybody wants to get excited about, the frozen rope throws across your body 50 yards down the field, or the ability to, have a Randall Cunningham or a Michael Vick type of escape and touchdown run. And those are cool. They're great to have it. I think if Tua had that type of scramble ability, he would literally be unstoppable because of how you have to defend him. And I see all these, analytics people on Twitter that just post charts, and Tua's always, top right Tua, my favorite part about the graphs. And they've asked themselves, like, how is Tua in this position? I could not believe that I saw Tua here. What a surprise to see Tua in this position on the chart. It's like, bro, no, that's just because he's really good. Like, just adjust your model to account for the fact that this guy's a really good quarterback. Or now all of a sudden I saw one guy saying that average air yards per attempt was no longer a stat that he cared about, because now all of a sudden Tua is tops in that one too. So, give me the anticipation, give me the accuracy, give me the pre-snap processing to know where the ball should go, and to know if they take this away, now I have this availability. He's one of the smartest quarterbacks in the league. He gets the ball out faster than any quarterback in the league. He's one of the most accurate. The only thing that makes him not Dan Marino is he doesn't have the laser rocket arm. Everything else that made Marino great that people kind of sleep on is what Tua has. And like, at what point does he finally get the recognition? I think maybe an MVP and a trip to the Super Bowl, like that might be what it takes, but that's where he's trending right now.
Well, so let's talk about that here before we wrap up. Like, how do we parse through that where it's a quarterback award, usually the MVP, but Tyreek Hill is on pace right now, even through 16 games, is on pace to be the first ever 2,000-yard wide receiver. So it's a chicken and egg situation. How do we parse through who the MVP of the league should be in that spot if you got Tua doing what he's doing, but you got Tyreek Hill doing what he's doing?
Yeah, that's why I apologize that for some reason the tree cutters are right outside my window right now, chopping down all the trees outside of my house. So I apologize for the extra sound there. But yeah, I mean, it is a quarterback award, like you mentioned. I think Robert Griffin III had listed both Tyreek and AJ Brown as 1 and 2. And it's like, I commend your, kind of creativity, but it's not going to go that way. It never does. And I think that it comes down to the simple fact that the quarterback touches the ball every single play. And as great as I think Tyreek Hill has been as a blocker, which is a necessity in this offense, for Tua or for a quarterback, like they get the play call in, they communicate, the play call, and then maybe some things to look for to the rest of the offense. They then make their checks. They, can switch the runs either side of the formation. Like everything the offense does is constructed through the quarterback. And there's a reason why. I think the easiest way to look at this is to go back to last year when Tua wasn't playing. What did this offense look like? They weren't functional, right? So the quarterback is what makes the entire engine go. And I think the argument opens up for receivers for Tyreek Hill because it's Tua. If it was Mahomes, it wouldn't be like this, regardless of production of the position. If it's because of the narrative we talked about with Tua that I think that the receiver does get some love in this sense. Now, I think Tyreek probably is one of the top 5 most valuable players in the NFL, but it's always a quarterback because you just cannot match their level of importance on a snap-by-snap basis.
I worry, though, that the two votes they'll cannibalize each other,
That would be a shame. And, I suppose they could cannibalize each other, but like the thing is every top quarterback has a guy like that. Like you don't post these numbers unless you have a premier guy. And so hopefully, we get to that point of the year. Hopefully the Dolphins go in, they beat KC and they get a big win in Buffalo, and the narrative maybe shifts a little more to where it doesn't turn out like that.
The Dolphins can win this weekend. That is a fun, long flight home from Germany. It could be 7-2 going into the bye, and then what's a very favorable schedule. I think the next 5 games, before the final 3, which are very tough. Travis, tell everybody how they can hear you, of course, this weekend, and also listen to the podcast.
Yeah, appreciate you having me as always. The Drive Time podcast, 5 days a week. We just produced the Chiefs preview where I went crazy this week and watched every Kansas City game because I cannot wait for this one. And like my good friend ZASLOW here, I believe the Dolphins have a great chance to find victory in this one and make us all very happy for 2 weeks. So Drive Time podcast, 5 days a week, post-game show on the iHeart app, 105.9 FM and 9:40 AM here in South Florida. And then just on Twitter, firing off tweets at Wingfield NFL every day. Talking about how cool this team is to cover.
Great job, Travis. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate you here.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.